Welcome back to my channel today. My name is Ediete MJ. Today I want to briefly talk about the Exodus. My channel is Religion, Science and Technology, and I've spent the last 16 videos trying to explain the concept of the database management system, and the application. I'm trying to link science and religion and technology together. I've spent more than a decade working in my company, like I keep saying in my videos. But today I want to speak on something different, but along the same path, which is what? Moving from slave to a king. I've done some few videos where I talk about the kingdom, and then I talk about the king, and then I talk about the slave. I say that in every kingdom, there are just two people, the king and the slave. The responsibility of the king is to move from point A to point B in the kingdom. And the responsibility of the slave is to ensure the movement of the king from that point A to point B. That is all. It's all about the king. And I said that is the paradox of a slave, meaning the king is the slave and the slave is the king. So today I want to elaborate more on that using the event of Exodus in the Bible, where the Israelites moved from Egypt to their promised land. The first encounter was between God and Moses, where Moses saw the burning bush, but yet the bush was not consumed. And then he went to check, and God told him to remove his sandals. After the conversation, where God asked Moses to come to Pharaoh and free the Israelites, God asked him, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "A staff." In Moses' hand, what he knew that to be was just a staff. But God told him, "Release it, throw it on the ground." And he did, and it became a snake. So God was saying, this is what it is in your hand. But when you give it to me, I will show you the true nature of this, of what you have in your hand. So Moses was to do all the miracle of getting the Israelites out of Egypt using that instrument that was in his hand, staff. Now, when you look at this world, it is a projection. Science has shown us that, but now we are going to see it through the lens of the Bible. This world is not real, but the projection of four dimensions, which is fire, air, earth, and water. These four dimensions come together to project what we are seeing or what we are calling universe. And we are just composition of these four elements in different percentages. That is it. Now, two great scientists debated this about Einstein and Bohr. Bohr was saying, if I'm not looking at the moon is not there. And about Einstein was like, you must be crazy. That is not possible. That is the moon. I'm looking at it. Even if I'm not looking at the moon, it is still there. Bohr said no. It is when you look that you bring that construct. When you are not looking, it's not there. And that's why it is called a view. Whatever you are seeing with your eye is just a view created by you. They are not real. This world is not the real world. Quantum physics is showing us that. Now, when Moses got to Egypt and he had to tell Pharaoh that God has asked me to come and free the Israelites. The first thing Pharaoh did was to punish the Israelites by not giving them straws. He told the Egyptian foremen, don't give these guys straws again, but require them to produce the same quantity of bricks. Now, before Moses went to Pharaoh. God told him, the whole of this process is about me. I am the one asking you to go and free the Israelites. It is me that is going to free the Israelites. But at the same time, I am the one that is going to harden the heart of Pharaoh, not to allow the Israelites to go. He said, I raise you up for this very purpose. That was what he told Pharaoh. So it's all about God now, and that is the king. So the king wants to move from point A to point B. What God was trying to teach the Israelites was that if you have to be free, if you have to move from being a slave to being a king, there are processes you have to go through. First, you have to understand the entire value chain. He promised to bring them to a land filled with milk and honey. But that milk and honey would not be at the final stage. That will be at the raw state. So you have to understand the process of getting it from that raw state to the final state. And this was what he had to teach them in Egypt, even before they moved. When I started my career in my company as an IT support, I remember working with uh, one structural engineer. I went to work on his computer. This guy is very fast. Engineer Victor is a Filipino. So I saw him constructing a bridge. Very fast. So I asked him, Engineer Victor, you are this good, but why are you here? Why are you working for somebody? He looked at me and he said, John, there are two stages. The first stage is getting the job, and the second stage is executing the job. I know how to execute the job, but I don't know how to get the job. And sincerely, I don't want to learn how to get the job. MD is very good at getting the job. Please let him continue that part, and I'll work with him to execute the job when he brings it. That was the stage the Israelites were as at when they were in Egypt, making bricks. So the first thing God had to do was to teach them how to get the straws to the point of making the bricks. Now, what was the argument between Pharaoh and Moses? When Moses came to Pharaoh and said, God has asked you to let the Israelites go, Pharaoh was saying, what are you talking about? If I'm going to let the Israelites go, then you will have to show me something that will keep us going when you take these guys away. So, what was the first thing that Moses did? He threw his staff on the ground, and that became snake. Pharaoh called the magicians to do likewise. They did similar thing, and Pharaoh was like, Moses, I am asking you to give us an alternative, and you are showing us what we already know. Now, let me explain something to you. The mistake you are making. You think that the Israelites are the one doing the job from the start to finish. That is the mistake you are making. They are not. We are the one providing the straws. We are the one with the idea. We are the one with the job. They are only executing. That is why they are the slave. And we are the king. So, if you are going to take the slave away, you have to show us an alternative route to how we continue to make or provide for our community or for our nation when we don't have the slave working for us. So what you are demonstrating to us are things we already know. So Moses performed the first plague of turning water into blood. Man, these are powerful technologies. ChatGPT is nowhere near these levels of technologies, sincerely speaking. Powerful technologies. The magician repeated the same thing. Pharaoh is like, guy, you still don't get it. If you don't show us something we don't already know, there is no way you will take the Israelites away. When eventually Moses did the third plague and the magicians couldn't do it, they told Pharaoh, this is the hand of God. What they were saying was that at this point, Pharaoh, God has moved. You know, when God told Abraham that your children will serve in an unknown land for 400 years as slave, what that meant was that Egypt was already existing with heavy technology, and God was the one communicating this technology to them through the magicians. But God was about moving, and it was about moving from the magicians to prophet, and that was exactly what he was doing. So he told Pharaoh, you have to let my firstborn go. Israel is my firstborn. If you don't let them go, this is what I'm going to do to you. At the end of the day, it was still God that was hardening the heart of Pharaoh. So, meaning God was the one that orchestrated everything. The king was about to move. So, all the slave could do is to prepare the path for the king to move. That is it, period. So, the first rule is that never look at the scripture through the lens of good and evil. You will never get it. Good and evil, the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden was the gateway for the earth nation to enter into this dimension called world. There were other nations which I've mentioned. The tree of life is the internetworking of these four nations together. And that is what you see as God. So, when Moses did that third plague that the magicians couldn't do, as the subsequent ones, the magicians knew God had moved. Eventually, we got to the 10th plague, where the firstborn were killed. The firstborn of Egypt were killed. And I'm going to make another video sometime later in future about the firstborn. The difference between the firstborn and the first child. The firstborn is the person that is moving the business from one generation to another generation. That's firstborn. Joseph was the firstborn, but not the first child. So you have to understand that. Now, in entering this realm, there is the firstborn among these four nations. So Adam and Eve were not the first human being in this world, projected into this world. Adam and Eve were the first man of the earth nation projected into this world. That was why when Cain killed Abel and God placed that cost on him, he was saying, this is too much. When they see me, they will kill me. Who was he talking about? He was talking about those from the other nations. Now, when Israel when they eventually left, when Pharaoh allowed them to go, after God killed the firstborn, meaning that was the end. I have moved. It was obvious that God had moved to the next nation, no longer with Egypt. He was no longer going to perform his function through the magicians anymore. He was now going to use the prophet. That was the demonstration of Exodus. Now, when they were leaving Egypt, you could see the operation of these four elements. When they got to the water, God told Moses, you have to use the staff. The staff signifies negotiation power. Now you have to negotiate with the water nation to align with you, allow you pass, and then protect you. And that was exactly what he did. So they crossed when the water nation allowed them to cross. And then the water nation formed ally with them and were able to fight against the Egyptians. But when they got into the wilderness, they needed water. And Moses had to turn to God again after their grumbling. And God said, the staff in your hand, you are going to repeat the same negotiation you did with the water nation. This time around, you need the water nation to come to you. But the earth nation is blocking them. So you have to negotiate with the earth nation to allow the water nation to come to you. That was what he did when he struck the rock. And then water gushed out. It is about negotiating with all these elements. You saw the element, fire and the cloud, when the Israelites were going. This is basically what the whole of Exodus is about. Now, how do you bring this into the workspace? Every company has the king and the slave. Now, don't look at the word slave from the derogatory perspective or as a derogatory word. Just see it as workers. So you are working in a company and you want to be free. You want to move from being a slave to being a king. You've got to understand the full value chain. I have had the opportunity of managing the ERP of my company for more than a decade. Trying to understand this value chain led me into being able to train everyone in all the departments from finance to operation, inventory, procurement, sales, HR, payroll, finance. Come on, I can show you the report. Balance sheet, your ledgers to your trial balance to the balance sheet to the P&L. I know them because I was trying to understand the complete value chain. That is what the Exodus is all about. Now, when you look at the entire scripture, the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation, this is what it is all about. Jesus came to demonstrate to us how to free yourself from this prison called body. The fact remains that if you don't know how to do it, eventually death will do it for you. And this body will return to dust. This Adam will return to dust. Because the human body is like a radio receiver. There is the radio station, and then there is the broadcaster. Your body is the radio receiver. I am talking to you now, transmitting through this radio receiver. This is not me. My mind is not me. I have demonstrated this in my other videos. So if you have not watched them, please go back and watch them. Subscribe to my channel and watch them. Follow me on Facebook page and watch them. So this is all I want to share with us today. The Exodus. How to move from being a slave to being a king. If this had made any sense to you, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please click on that subscribe button. And I would also like to get feedback from you. It will help the algorithm to help me push this video forward to other people. Thank you. See you in my next video.